Next item for this morning is item P7, Technology Deputy Director's Report. Item P7-1 is our CROS project update, and we do have a PowerPoint presentation.
Mr. Capelon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, honorable members. I am Scott Capelong, Acting Chief Information Officer and Deputy Director for the Technology Services Department. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this month's update on our project. Joining me today is Mr. Jose Gonzalez, Compensation Lead on the CROS project team. After the project update, Mr. Gonzalez will present an overview of the CROS benefits-based compensation model. I'm pleased to report that the project continues to remain on schedule and under budget. We recently completed our first checkpoint to assess the progress of Rollout 2 implementation activities. Checkpoints provide an opportunity for the analysis and evaluation of our development so we can ensure we are proceeding as planned. I'm happy to report that we are on track for completing all program functions for our implementation next spring. The CROS project management team has addressed items that are being tracked by the California Department of Technology's Independent Project Oversight Team. This includes providing additional details in our project schedule, as well as updating and completing project management plans. As Mr. Gao reported in his Executive Director's report, we are moving forward with recruitment efforts to refill the project director vacancy. As mentioned in last month's update, Ms. Suzanne Bueller, Deputy Director of the Business Tax and Fee Department, and I are currently serving as the leadership team for the project until the director role has been filled. Through the month of April 2017, the project budget status is as follows. For the current month, 81% expended, year-to-date, 49% expended, and project-to-date, 79% expended. I will now turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez, who will present the compensation model.
Good afternoon, members. The CROS project has a performance-based, benefits-funded, fixed-price contract with Fast Enterprises in the amount of $85.1 million. This means that we have to measure an improvement, which we call a benefit, before we can pay the vendor. The BOE has identified areas referred to as benefit streams that the new system may potentially improve. They include collections, audit, return analysis, returns, consumer use tax, and compliance. Conceptually, what we are doing is comparing the revenue generated from using the new system to the revenue generated in the 12 months prior to each rollout. Ideally, the new system revenue will be higher, and this benefit will be used to pay the vendor following the established compensation rules. The compensation rules were mutually established by the BOE, Department of Finance, and the vendor. The compensation rules are complex, so for the sake of this discussion, I have broken it down into 4 simplified steps. Step 1. When we establish the go-live date for a rollout, we measure the revenue obtained from the benefit streams over the 12 months prior to the rollout date. We refer to this as the baseline. Step 2. Each quarter following the rollout date, we measure the revenue received for those same benefit streams and compare it to the baseline. We arrive at a difference that we refer to as the benefit. Step 3. The benefit is adjusted for factors unrelated to the implementation of the new system, such as tax rate changes, new programs, or economic fluctuations. And step 4, we pay the vendor from the benefits received up to the fixed price contract amount.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. That concludes this month's report and presentation. We are prepared to respond to any other questions you may have.
Members? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What was the logic in using a perpetual baseline as opposed to a historical baseline, where you would take one historical year or one historical period, be it a fiscal year or whatever?
My understanding is that what they wanted to do is conceptually compare the revenue from using the legacy system to the revenue using the new system. So if you take the previous 12 months, that represents the legacy, which is Iris, and then moving forward, we measure in the new system, which is Gentex. So we want to compare the new to the old.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I understand it. So when you roll out a new system, at that point, you develop the baseline based on the previous 12 months.
Correct.
And then you compare that to the next 12 months?
We actually, per the compensation rules, we measure monthly and we pay quarterly. So every quarter moving forward, we're going to compare that quarter to the baseline first quarter.
And if there's debits and credits, how's that treated?
Once we get those debits or credits, we have to go ahead and adjust it for items unrelated to the new system. So there could be economic fluctuations, there could be tax rate changes. there
No, I
could
mean,
be
given all of
factors.
that, given all of the adjustments, presuming that they're made continuously, if there is a fluctuation in debits and credits, how are the credits treated?
Credits are treated as a zero, therefore there'd be no compensation in that quarter.
So that seems to be off. If you have a debit in one period, and then you have a credit in one period, it's treated as a zero, it's a win-win situation, as opposed to offsetting that to reflect the net benefit over a year. That seems to calculate the net benefit on a monthly basis, and when there is no benefit, is a zero amount.
For compensation purposes, it's a zero, but as we roll forward, we look at it cumulative. So to be cumulative, it could be a credit in this quarter.
So the offset will occur when there's a debit, subsequent debit.
Correct. I mean, it could go down one quarter, but it could also go up the next quarter, and then you take the net. So as we move forward, we look at the cumulative numbers.
Let me put some numbers to it.
Okay.
Let's say you have a baseline of $5.
Okay.
And then the first quarter, you show a $6 with a positive $1. Second quarter, you show a $4 with a negative $1. That baseline is in those 2 months. That baselines are now rolling forward, and so it would be offset if there's a debit in the third month for $6 again. That would be offset by that $1 somehow, or would it be included in the 12 months, which wouldn't homogenize the debit? It would actually spread it out over 12 months, having a diluting effect. And this can, I mean, you guys, we can talk about this later. I mean, I don't want to catch you off guard, but just the notion of not offsetting debits and credits on a monthly basis seems to seems to not be reflective of the actual revenue. And having a perpetual baseline seems to create an inherent challenge, I think. Having a historical baseline where you say in the year 2017, the average revenue for this particular activity, let's say collection, was X. And we're going to compare that every year, every month. This month, if you're higher than that average, there's a debit. If this month, if you're lower than that average, there's a credit, and that credit will be offset against the subsequent debit in the following month. I mean, that's how we do our audits. I mean, that's how we do our analysis and so forth. We don't go into a situation where there's a debit in one period and there's a credit, but that credit is treated as a zero.
So I think we'd be happy to work with your office and go through those specific scenarios and kind of identify how that process will work, in those types of examples.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.